Welcome to Aries Adventures in Early Access. This first one we'll be looking at Nom Nom Galaxy, another title from the Pixel Junk team, a group that usually creates some really classic downloadable titles for the PS3. Usually it's that whole insane but extremely cute approach to a lot of those very familiar genre types like tower defense and just jumping and all those sort of things, as well as like one lot of shooting games. This time it's Nom Nom Galaxy. It's got the same sort of style and iteration as usual. Bright colours, fancy effects, all that sort of stuff. And just an insane idea based around management and base building. This time I'll have you collecting ingredients to make soup to send to some kind of intergalactic slug monsters. Of course, that's the Pixel Junk approach. Unfortunately, it seems the extent of their creativity and innovation was just this idea about creating soup with a cute environment rather than the actual gameplay. Now I know that might be a bit harsh. The game is still an early access model and there probably is certain missing mechanics that they're going to add, as well as a few build options and that sort of stuff. So far there have been a few improvements during the development cycle and additions that do change the game a little bit, but really not that much to the core. It's a few new extra buildings, a few new extra items to use, a little bit of extra progression, that sort of stuff, as well as some new planets, new enemies, new ingredients to thing. But the core gameplay is still the same throughout. The basic gameplay, you collect a lot of these ingredients, you explore the world for more ingredients, you bring them back to your base, you maybe grow some there and that sort of stuff. A few of the ingredients like that come from monsters will have you adventuring out constantly to gather and bring back. Once you've brought them to your base, you plug them into your little soup machines, they create soup, and then you blast them off to the intergalactic slug monsters. And there you go, basic gameplay. There are a few ways that it changes up. You can remodel your base in different ways, and there's also a mechanic to spend some of your currency that you get from the slug monsters on new minions that'll do the work for you to move around soup, move around ingredients, as well as some extra items for yourself to help, the gameplay or just certain other aspects of your base. There is just very little depth to the whole building aspects, and it would seem there's just, one kind of optimal approach. Build everything in one spot in a straight horizontal line on the same plane, just because the AI for the minions that are supposed to move things here and back and there are incredibly dumb. Not just your basic minion dumb, but beyond levels of stupid. You cannot be sure if they're going to get the ingredients where they need to be get. They might be holding the wrong ingredient for the entire game without you even knowing, and that's the extent of their ability. When you're building in different planes up and down, sometimes you'll find the ingredients will just stay in the above or below area and never move from there. So you've really got to be sure that the ingredients are going to get where they're going, and that means a big straight base. Obviously that's a bit boring, but that's the way it goes. The part I dislike the most because of this silly AI is that the whole game takes a whole lot of constant management. Endless busy work to maintain the station. You're the one going out collecting everything, all the materials, killing whatever and gathering that. You're the one planting everything and harvesting that sort of stuff. You're the one maintaining the balance of the base. Now, a lot of these management games you do have balance, but this takes it to the extreme where you're having to have an input and just about every action to be sure that you're creating soup and sending it to intergalactic slug monsters. The AI do tend to help a little bit, but they're quite slow in getting to where they need to get with it, and their pathing is a bit funny too. They won't just go directly to where they're needed with that item. They'll shuffle back and forward between getting something and then getting it to where it needs to go. There's even this kind of time-based mechanic based on the day of the planet. The problem with this is, while you've got a lot of ingredients floating around, that sort of stuff, by the end of the day, if they're not planted or they haven't been picked up or placed in a machine, they just disappear for good. So there's really no stock building per se. You can't really grab this gigantic amount of resources in your base and then be done with it for a while and build lots of soup and that sort of stuff. You have to constantly go out there every single day, every single minute to collect and grow and kill and manufacture and that sort of stuff. And it's really actually quite tiring. For me, I like creating a system in these management games where you create a harmony. The base builds and it manages itself after a time, and you can see that growth without you having this constant input. There's just none of that here. I can't really relax at all. I'm constantly having to go out and do something, and while that might be other people's interest in their gameplay, it's just not mine for this genre. Another issue I find is that you can't even build a base. Like, I love building bases in these games. I want these huge sprawling facilities to grow and build, and it's just great getting that sort of stuff built, and it's a good progression point. You want to keep going out to get new resources, to build bigger bases and more money and that sort of stuff. But in here, it's really limited by the power mechanic. Now, I know they've said they're going to add a few different mechanics for this later, and obviously some buildings to create some more growth, create some more power, but at the moment you're really limited in your base size and how much soup machines you have and how many corridors you have, which kind of limits your approach. One of the things I like doing to get materials was obviously build your base up top, but then have a nice little chute going down below to where some of the more rarer ingredients are, and then have a few minions just throwing things up constantly and that sort of stuff. But the further you build down and the further you build away from your base, the more power you'll use, and eventually you just see that it'll shut off, and then you won't have any more soup, so you've got to destroy things, and then it really doesn't let you build how you want to build. There are a few interesting glimpses here and there in the gameplay. I do like the worlds and the whole random aspects of the building. The monsters are cute, the ingredients are cute, and it's nice how there's some sort of interaction between, like, some sort of monsters will want to eat certain ingredients and that sort of stuff, so you can kind of bring them over to your area by creating their food source, that sort of stuff. And a lot of these monster bases too, if you attack them, they'll create more monsters for you to kill and gather from, but going too far and you destroy your base, and therefore you destroy any sort of long-term gains from that prospect. The other bit I like is the whole upgrading style. There's, out in the world where you're digging and that sort of stuff, you'll find little, what I'd call little discs, little hard disks, floppy disks, that sort of thing. And these add to your resource pool, and once you get enough resources, once a day's ended, you get to upgrade your character. Sometimes it's new building options. I've used a couple of the girders and that sort of stuff. There's new minions to buy as well. Some defensive, some that just work in your base, as well as some very defensive and offensive weapons that you can use. While playing, it seems that the demands of the galaxy also change as well. The slug monsters get a bit bored with, the same sort of soup over and over again, and so you'll get these weighted percentages that come up, and a little news flash at the bottom, which is cute as well, saying, what's demanded in the universe and how much it's demanded. And if you provide those, it obviously rewards you a lot more for them. So this creates a lot more diversifying, what ingredients you have and what ingredients you want available to you. So it's a nice little touch like that as well. It just seems, unfortunately, that there just isn't enough to hook me in Nom Nom Galaxy. I love the name, I love the style, I love the premise. It's great that the Pixel Junk are even trying new things, but I just want some kind of building sim involving micromanagement where you're building a base and watching it grow, instead of all this singular aspects and having to have an input in each and every process at each and every moment. Like, maybe that's my poor expectations going into it, but then if the combat and these actions were the most important part, I would expect them to be a little bit more interesting, but right now they're just a bit boring. You get a few invasions of the mobs, which, if you have the sword, are pretty much useless. The defenses are minimal as well. The little mobs that are around the base aren't going to give you much of a problem. So there really isn't that much there in the combat aspects that are interesting either, so I don't know why they would push this constant action-based gameplay. I want to build a base. I want to build a huge sprawling base that makes soups. I want minions to do most of the work for me. Yeah, it'd be nice to get my hands dirty now and then, but mostly I just want this beautiful base running before me. I want to see all the cogs on these wheels turning perfectly, that sort of stuff, and Nom Nom Galaxy just isn't that game. Overall, it's just one of their weaker titles. It's a fun premise, but it lacks that variability in the gameplay that would make it more enjoyable and more replayable as well.